Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 2727. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an infamous rapper, an IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Yes, I changed it up this week because we do have an infamous, and I do mean infamous, meaning not famous rapper, who is on the podcast. We learned that this past week. He joins us again, as he is always last but not least. But he also is bringing fans. He's got fans, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, along with the last two hoops games, a little bit of football and a little bit of baseball this week as that starts to heat up. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring the team on board. And first to the stage, Ben Stout.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey, the thumbs up didn't work. What's up with that? You should be doing the why is it not working?
I don't know why it's not working. Maybe it has to be a certain distance from the screen. There we go.
Okay. Well, that's like
the double one is the big
there
one.
We go. You should do that every time you get introed, right? So since we have such exciting background graphics and stuff to go with the YouTube show, you should do that every single time.
No doubt. Well, glad to be on after a UCF basketball win. That's for sure. Can't wait to talk about it.
Absolutely. Next on to the stage, Alan Levin. Welcome back to the show, Alan.
Hey, what's going on, Roger?
Hey, I like that. That's better than Nobra's weak attempt last.
What does he do?
Yeah. Hey, I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah.
But excited to have you back this week. And again, just a shout out to everyone, to Alan. He's the one who puts together our notes every week. And without him, I'd be lost 7 minutes until the show. So thank you, Alan, for doing that for us.
No problem.
Last but not least, but always last, and our infamous rapper, Josh Lazar. We're going to be spitting bars with Josh Lazar this week.
Ever since I can remember, I've been popping my collar. Ever since I can remember, we were getting these dubs. And you better put the no money in their hands. So, hey, everyone, how you doing today?
All right, Josh, that was amazing, but you sound like you're underwater again.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It is because of you, Roger. It's because of you.
Sure, blame
because
me.
I'm doing this stupid slide thing on the side. And you're like, oh, do the slides. It's because of the slides. I swear to God.
Okay. Well, his mic was working. We tested it before the show, so I don't know what's going on. He's drinking a little too much bubbly. I don't know what's going on with that. But as an homage to Josh right there, I'm going to pop a half a collar because this week the UCF basketball team had a big win against Texas Tech, so I'm excited to get into that. But before we do, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of text talk. So I'm going to start with Ben. What is your text talk for this week?
So partly because he halfway predicted it and partly because there's a sword involved, it's Josh's text right as the Texas Tech game started, in the middle of the woods with some friends and a sword that chops wood. And then he said, I'm going to have to watch this in post, but I'm calling a W right now by 5. Now, luckily, he predicted the win by UCF very well. But it was even more so. It was lucky that we won by much more than 5, and we'll get into that. But I'm glad that you were able to, have some warmth with a sword that chops wood there. So I had to call that one out.
Since we are a clean show, I won't talk about a reference to a certain movie that kind of goes along with sword chopping wood. But I'll just leave that out there. Leave that to your imagination, folks. If Josh's microphone is fixed,
I hope it is.
Tell what was the chopping wood with the sword thing there?
I can tell you if my mic is fine. This is why nope. You need to stop telling me to do things before the show.
asking, Josh. I ask. I don't. Come on now. All right. Well, on his mic a problem.
Oh, your mic's a problem.
Your mic's messed up, Roger. It sounds like you're far away. You guys are battling, and who has worse microphones on this show?
I guess. Do I sound like I'm underwater?
Now you're good.
You're good now.
Okay. Well, all right. So now that I'm good, Alan, what is your text talk for this week?
I had two. One was just we all kind of talked about it during the game we lost earlier in the week, which was about chucking up the threes. That's something I'm going to talk about today in my fun facts. So chucking threes is killing us. You had said a couple times. So that was an interesting point that I want to get into. And then the other one was someone said Johnny Gone ? Which was a weird time to say it right after a win. But but I like that Ben said he's safe because I think that's been a conversation all year. And I think now with a third top 25 win, it's pretty safe to say that Johnny's safe now, or he should be safe.
Program record.
I don't know.
Program record.
I know, and we'll get into it. That is one of the questions for today's chat. Josh, your mic sounds a lot better, so I don't know what you did, but I will say this.
I'm blaming you. Completely blaming you. It's all your fault.
All right.
You got that one.
Blame me. I'm okay. I'm the host of the show, so you can blame me.
Handle it. You can.
So, Alan, didn't you have another text talk that you were going to share?
I don't know how to bring up the picture. I don't think I can do it.
Oh, no. I meant the testosterone induced team we had this week.
Yeah, I guess we're all talking about who needs.
Hold on,
TRT.
not we. Remember Rob Powers from earlier in the show?
Yes, Rob said it, and then
yes, Rob has a business where he helps people. He's a doctor, and he helps people with their needs, with hormone therapy and all that kind of stuff. So randomly.
It was very random.
Yeah. He randomly. Go ahead, Alan.
Random.
It was like, UCF basketball is chucking up threes. By the way, do you need testosterone replacement therapy? It's pretty much what happened.
It was like an infomercial during the game.
That's exactly what it was, Ben.
Yeah, it was like the banner that goes
talking about UCF then.
Well, I know during the Texas Tech game, it looked like we got a little HGH going on, or some testosterone therapy or something going on because they played a lot of stuff. All right, and last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar, what did you have for this?
Microphones. Okay, so y'all took my my own words and used it against me. So yeah, that's pretty much what it was. I was hiking. I wasn't hiking. I was camping, barely camping. But I was camping in the middle of the woods, and we were. I wasn't going to go to the game for a lot of reasons. One, because I was hanging out with friends and having fun. Two, I was playing around with like a $300 cold steel sword that was awesome, and I don't show up to decent games and they win, so I have a problem this coming week. We'll talk about that maybe. So I was in the middle of the woods. We literally, and I'm talking not like you have already half a thing of wood, half a log, and you chop it and it's little slices. No, we took like pretty large chunks of wood and we were chopping it with a sword. It was wonderful. So, but all that's to say, I knew we were going to win the game. I barely looked at the game while it was being played, and it was wonderful.
Awesome. That was more of a talk than a text talk, but that's okay.
Listen, you put things in the comments, and I'm going to just keep going.
I have an additional text talk on that topic. It was Roger thanking Josh for after the Texas Tech win for not going to the game. So that was all of Night Nation thanks Josh Lazar for not going to the Texas Tech game so we could get our third ranked win of the year. So thank you very much.
So we're thankful you decided to play Conan the Barbarian with your sword in the woods while we won. Well, we won the game. So
that's wonderful.
All right. Moving on. So now that we've got that extremely weird text talk out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the West Virginia Mountaineers round 2. Unfortunately, as the title says. EERS brought the tears this week, and it's just wrong on so many ways. The West Virginia is 9-16. Yes, they're getting better throughout the season. Yes, they're bringing pieces back, but we had no business losing this game, folks. I mean, absolutely none. We lost 77-67. UCF trailed the entire game, never had a lead the entire game. And even Johnny in his presser for Texas Tech mentioned how he never throws his guys under the bus, but basically was talking about in Texas Tech game, they wanted to get back to how they won basketball games, which is not chucking up. I think, what was that, 36 threes or 38?
38.
Yeah, 38 threes. We are not a three-point shooting team.
No.
We haven't been. We never have been. We body people. We have athleticism. We have length, and we generate offense off of transition. Our defense causes offense and matchups so that we can get those points in transition. I don't know what the guys were thinking settling for those threes. Yes, we saw a zone, but we saw zone before this year. This is not the first time they've seen a zone. They practice against each other playing the zone. They should know exactly what they need to do, and we had the bodies to be able to body West Virginia, and we simply didn't do that. And I don't understand it. I don't understand what they were thinking. During the game, I know Johnny couldn't have been happy with what we were doing, and the way he reiterated made it sound like he was telling them what to do and they just weren't doing it. So, it was extremely disappointing. We out rebounded West Virginia 42-36. West Virginia had 26 points in the paint to our 20. We got out hustled, and as Alan likes to say, out hustled and out muscled.
They actually out rebounded us 42-36.
Yeah, I meant to say, like, I wrote it wrong, but it was out rebounded by them. I meant,
That's what I should have said. I should have caught that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out. Darius Johnson with a season high 29 points. Avery was the only other night with 14 points. But anytime your one player has 29 points and we're chucking 38 threes, you know that's a problem. UCF bench 5 for 21 from the field, and they've been really good all season. We've been really good all season off the bench, and we're able to rotate. We did that successfully in Texas Tech. So not only did the starters have a really, really bad off night, but so did the bench. Guys, I don't know, that's a 10,000-foot level. What did you guys see in this game?
I think some of the main things that I saw, like you said, it seemed like about the zone defense in particular by West Virginia, it just seemed like offensively, for some reason, we were afraid to attack the inside of the zone. Like there was no drive and kick action. It was essentially most offensive possessions in the half court were 20 seconds worth of passing the ball around the key, around the 3-point line. And then it was a contested 3-pointer, or it was just some sort of weird action that wound up losing the ball. It was actually it wasn't a whole lot of turnovers, so I guess they weren't losing the ball. It was just bad shots overall. It was just they weren't making the zone work. Like they were barely even making their zone rotate. If you want to have quick passes around the around the 3-point line to kind of shift the zone and then try to attack the middle of it, especially around the free throw line, that's where you can get some success versus zone defense. But it just seemed like for the first time that I had seen since maybe the Kansas State game, the first conference game of the season, we just looked, dare I say, a little bit like scared. Like it was almost like we were just intimidated when nobody has intimidated us this season. It was just a weird game offensively for us outside of Darius Johnson, who luckily for us is on a very, he's coming along really, really nicely over the last 7 or 8 games. He's been extremely impressive. And he was pretty impressive against West Virginia. But outside of him, there just wasn't much production as we talked about. But the other thing too is that they looked a little bit that way. The other thing too is that it reminded me of a little bit about the Stetson game that we had earlier this season. In one sense, it seemed like West Virginia just could do no wrong on offense. It seemed like even when we had a good defensive possession where we were flying around and trying our best to get in passing lanes or whatever, they still made like a tough shot. And so it was kind of like both ends of the floor just weren't working. And on top of that, we had a team that we were going against a team that couldn't miss. They wound up, when you're shooting 50% from the field, 50% from the 3-point line, as West Virginia was doing, they were just hot at home. And to combine that with not being aggressive and not playing against the zone on offense and attacking it the way that you should, it was just a bad night overall. And as you said, it was start to finish. I think probably the worst performance of the season overall by this team, with the exception of maybe the Kansas State game. Even you go back to the technically worst loss of the season, the Stetson game. Even that game, I didn't feel like we necessarily played terrible. It's just they couldn't miss. This was like a combination of us not playing well and the other team couldn't miss, and it resulted in a 10-point loss.
All right, guys, what about your analysis?
I couldn't say it any better myself, and that's exactly why Ben plays in the analyst big leagues, and I sit here in my house. But I mean, the whole reality is like, how many times did they not pass it to the free throw line, to the man at the free throw line? How slow were those passes around the 3-point line? Even having the 5 maybe all the way back on, right when you're under the basket, a little bit to the left, right? Like, none of that was happening with any consistency. And it seems like, as we've seen, at the next game, when we have the gumption, if you will, to actually drive the paint, and we know we can. You've seen Sellers do it. You've seen Avery do it. You've seen Payne do it. I mean, you've seen Sia do it. You've seen Johnson. Every single person to a man, maybe not Nils yet, but still tries. He's building. They can get after it. I don't care if it's in a zone. There are ways to attack, and in this game, it felt soft. I'll be honest. It felt like it just either something wasn't clicking or it was just something wasn't right. And it seems like every time this team works to drive, works to not have 4,000 3-point attempts, and goes through the great defense they always have. There hasn't been too many games where the defense has been like off at all. And they keep that and keep pressing and pushing and not just settling for threes from the logo. We do pretty well, especially at home.
But Josh, it doesn't have to be from the logo. We are not a good 3-point shooting team.
I know. Well,
it doesn't matter where from the floor. I think we're shooting something like 28% either for the season or for the conference season. I can't remember which one it is. We are not a 3-point shooting team. That has not been our identity.
But that's not only – you are correct. And they were not shooting the easiest 3-point shots in a zone, even if that was the goal, which it's not. We all kind of know that. So it's just – it was infuriating not seeing what we all know is possible for this team. And that's kind of been, unfortunately, what we've seen on the season. I thought it was just all false hope. Kansas, false hope. Winning at Texas was false hope. This team can be really good, and we're seeing it, and I'd love to see it more consistently. But in that West Virginia game, it was I think it was 2 or 3 minutes left. I just shut it off. It wasn't worth my time because I knew what the ending of that game was going to be. And it's sad. I hate seeing that. because we've had fights so many times in a lot of these games, but not Morgantown.
All right. Alan, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, what everyone said, but I mean, I think the biggest thing that we just all saw that we didn't play our game, and that's what we basically all summarized today. But, you know, Johnny said, and we've all seen this, that we play inside out. And when we're sitting there chucking threes, that's obviously not a good recipe for us to win. I mean, we got out rebounded. They beat us at points in the paint. So we just didn't play our game. They really threw us off. I think that's really the best way to say it. And, it was on the road. And like you said, West Virginia had been improving for a little bit, right? Recently, but I think we all kind of penciled this in as a win, but just goes to show you that the Big 12, anything can happen. Any team can be beaten. Any team could beat us, vice versa. But, when you're getting out hustled and out muscled, and then your bench goes 5 of 21, and literally the only bench scorer was Avery. Every other, bench player was 0 on field goals. So there wasn't a lot of help. Combine that with pretty much DJ being the only person that had any sort of offensive output. It was just kind of a recipe for disaster. So, that's a game to put behind us for sure.
Yeah, I mean, both teams didn't shoot particularly well, right? So field goal percentage for West Virginia was 36%. When that happens, there's usually a good chance we win. We shot 37%. We actually had one more attempt than what they did. They were 21 for 58. We were 22 for 59. Go figure. The difference.
I think the small screen is getting you again there, Roger. I'm sorry. They shot 50% from the field. I'm sure it's the monitor that's getting you. I'm sorry, man. The West Virginia couldn't miss hardly, but it was a rough game.
No, it might help if I brought maybe it would help if I brought the right West Virginia game up. I had the one we won, so
there we might have been that. Yeah, well, it was just a rough game overall. I mean,
that makes it even more infuriating. And I know we're better at home than we are away, obviously, but we know we can beat this team. Again, I understand they went zone. I think they went zone 100% of the time, right? There might have been 1 or 2 plays, but I think it was vast majority, if not the whole game. And it's a great strategy because it made us do exactly what we don't do: chuck up threes. So
I mean, think about it, we only had 7 turnovers as a team. They had 14 turnovers, or excuse me, they had 13 turnovers as a team. Like, so it's not like we were turning the ball over because we were just passing it around the perimeter. Like, it was just no attack whatsoever. It was like they took the game. I mean, it was just weird. It was just weird because you're just not used to seeing that from this team. Like, that's not the way we fight. But
all right, Ben, you're right. So updated and corrected. This is totally different. Sorry. Field goal percentage, 32.9%, 23 of 70. 70 versus West Virginia, 26 of 54.
There you go. Yep.
Now think about that. That's 16 more attempts. 16 more attempts. That's ridiculous. 3-point percentage, by the way, 9.38%. Or I'm sorry, 23.7%, 9 of 38. They were 7 of 14 for 50%. 9 of 38. Stop shooting threes.
Yeah. It was wild. It was like at the beginning we were or in the middle of the first half, it was almost like we were trying to stay in it by shooting threes. And then like the second half, we just eventually we're going to start hitting, right? No. Unless your name's Darius Johnson, you're not going to start hitting.
Well, not even that. You remember, like, the theory was always, and Coach Dawkins has always said this, but that's when we had shooters, is you shoot through it, right? You shoot through a slot. If you have confidence, you keep shooting, or if you have confidence in the shooter, he's given them the green light to do that. But this was not the game to do that.
Yeah, I imagine Johnny Dawkins said at halftime, Matt Williams ain't walking through that door. All right.
True.
It was more like Shaq trying to shoot threes.
Yeah.
Speaking of poor shooting percentages from the free throw line, 66.7%, 12 of 18. So another poor shooting night there. West Virginia wasn't that much better, but they had 26 attempts versus our 18.
I'm surprised we even had 18 attempts. Just no aggression on offense. I'm just surprised.
That's what I mean. If you're going to shoot threes, you're not going to get a whole lot of foul calls unless it was like the one where the previous game where it should have been called but wasn't. But we aren't talking about previous games. Offensive rebounds, we out-rebounded them 13-7. So not a great offensive rebounding night, but better than them. Defensive rebounds, 35-23. They out-rebounded us 35-23. They won in the paint. We did not play our game. They pushed us out of our game, and they won in the paint. And, we had 9 steals. 9 steals. And 16 extra possessions, and we couldn't win this game, which is ridiculous. That's how poor of a shooting night this was. So I think that's enough about West Virginia. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please. Oh no, please just move on to the game where we shoot like less than 10 3-pointers and do kind of good.
What a concept.
So we shot actually more than 10 3-pointers, by the way. It was 12 3-pointers, but we shot 50%. So that's a little bit better. All right, we're going to move on at Josh's urging away from the tears.
Please.
To Texas Red after losing. So the Red Raiders lost this game. It was the last time we played them at their place, it was a close game there. We all had said at that time that we had an opportunity to beat these guys. They did have one of their bigs. Washington was out. He came into the game, then kind of re-injured his foot. He'd been in and out the last few weeks and sat for most of the game. But we drove the paint, and we were able to get their bigs in foul trouble. And when we got their bigs in foul trouble, we were able to take over the game. And so this was a completely different team approach than what it was against West Virginia, and it played to our strengths. Darius Johnson, again, led the way with 16 points. And he was an even point guard for a lot of this. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but Allen was not our Allen, but Allen was playing point guard, especially in the second half, quite a bit. Sellers had 15. Not a stellar day, but a good day for him. Walker played really, really well, and even Diallo got it a little bit too in the shooting, which it just felt like, when this team shoots halfway decently, it's not even like a stellar shooting night. This team can beat anyone. It's that offensive component where we've been talking about roller coaster for so long, has been so up and down that when we get a halfway decent shooting night, our defense can make up for the rest. We led by as many as 19 points in the game. We were just trying to wind clock down, and they got a couple of shots in there at the end. We shot much better from the field, 46% from the field and 50% from 3. And again, like we talked about earlier, the key here is we drove the paint. The guys were fearless. Yes. Whether it was Sellers, whether it was DJ, we were making an extra pass once we got into the paint. We were drawing people in and then kicking back out. DJ had a nice step back 3 after we were able to draw everybody into the paint. He drove forward, took a step back, and then shot. Same way with Sellers. He had a nice step back 3 as well. So, by doing that, we're getting cleaner looks at the 3, and we're putting people in the paint. But, offensive rebounds as well. That was another strength. We proved our athleticism, and they had some bigs, but our guys were just better. Points in the paint this week, 32-12. Assists, getting into the double digits for assists, and very, very limited turnovers. That assist to turnover ratio, you hear me talk about it all the time, but we won on the glass, we won on the paint, and we stopped their 3-point because Isaacs was a very, very good 3-point shooter, and he started to get hot a little bit. We pressured him, and then he stopped making those crazy 3-point shots when he had a little bit of pressure in his face. And I think it got in their head a little bit. If you watch their confidence level, Texas Tech, I think they went 9 minutes without a bucket. We complain about 3 minutes. I can't imagine going 9 minutes without a bucket. So we forced 14 turnovers. and that turned into 17 points. I'll talk a little bit about who was there at the game, which was a little bit interesting. What are you guys' takeaways from this game? I mean, I just feel like we did what we do, which is we body people in the paint.
Yeah, I thought in addition to what you just said, I think one of the biggest things about this game for me is that, especially it started like kind of going into as we started the second half, it seemed like every time that if we were to make a mistake on offense or turn the ball over, we got back so well on defense that we were like, okay, we're not going to allow this turnover to turn into points on the other end. We got back in transition, made sure that we either, altered their shot. We used our fouls in a smart way in those types of situations, or we were able to get steals or alter their shot where the ball was all automatically going back the other way, and we were in transition all of a sudden, and we were getting points out of it. You had big men running the floor very well. Omar Payne played great off the bench, had a couple of highlight dunks, had a couple of good blocks as well. He just played well in space. CJ Walker with the amazing offensive rebound at the end of the first half to kind of give us momentum going into the locker room. I mean, that's something that we kind of haven't had much of all year. Even in games that we're doing well, we haven't had something that happens at the end of the first half that just completely kind of motivates us and gives us that momentum going into the second half. And then that stretch that we had, I mean, you alluded to it, as far as about 6 minutes left in the game, we go from being up 4 or 5 or so, and then all of a sudden we just blow the game wide open. DJ had that crazy step back 3. We had a number of really good plays where, CJ Walker is driving towards from the left-hand side of the baseline. He's driving towards the paint. He draws Omar Payne's man and he dishes it to him by the foul line. And Omar Payne has that highlight dunk. I mean, it was great to see a ranked team that we were going against, a team that, yes, has some injuries, but they have some great players in the game as well, where we were able to take that kind of a little bit momentum that we were gaining for ourselves about the 6-minute mark in the second half, 6 minutes left in the game, and just close the door on them. I mean, we just kind of, stepped on their throat, and that was it. Like, we were just saying, we're going to run away with this game right now. You mentioned we were up by 19, I believe, was our biggest lead. And, the game wound up being a touch closer than that. Only, it's a 14-point win.
14-point win, yeah.
Yeah, 14-point win. But, I mean, honestly, from about that 6-minute mark on, we dominated Texas Tech. We dominated the 23rd ranked team in the country. And we got our third ranked team of the win of the year. And it was just great to see them bounce back, which, I mean, I don't want to go back to it, but it just makes the West Virginia performance that much more perplexing. And Josh especially has been talking about it all year long. And it's just the momentum and the motivation that our home crowd gives us is just special. And we're excited about that. But man, like, we need to see this on the road as well. And I think when we look back on this season, potentially that'll be one of the more disappointing things, is that we couldn't get things done on the road the way we did at home, because we showed so much promise overall. But overall, just again, a third ranked win of the season. That's a program record. Our 11th ranked win overall. 8 of those have come under Johnny Dawkins. So it's just a good way to bounce back and get our 5th conference win of this season.
Yeah, a couple things I'll add to that real quick. And then, Alan and Josh, I want to get your takes on this. One, the thing that was different with this game for me was energy. The guys, because we could rotate and the bench was playing so much better this game than they did last game, we were able to rotate effectively. We didn't have our bigs in foul trouble, so we didn't have to use them sparingly. Even Scylla came out and gave us some good minutes this game. The rotations were really, really good, and the switches. When Texas Tech tried to set us up for switches, I don't know. I was watching CJ. I was watching our paint players, and when they were trying to set us up for switches or picks, they played it really well. They'd pull off of their man, suck back into the paint, and then come right back out on them again, or avoid the pick. If it was a perimeter defender, they would avoid the pick and then basically slide with their man. And the defense was just so much more in sync this game from players like from our interior paint players than what I'd seen in the past. Texas Tech really wore down. I mean, by the end of the game, they had a short rotation compared to what ours were, and because our players were able to give meaningful minutes, we just had that tenacity and that energy all the way to the end. And, you know, literally we won the bunnies. And what do I mean by that? When we have these offensive games, or these just offensive games, it's when we're missing like, these bunny shots that are like 2 feet, 4 feet from the hoop. And, then we're missing layups. We're doing all these other different things. And this game, everybody did what they needed to do, whether it was CJ Walker, Ibrahim Diallo, why can't I remember his name? Number 5.
Omar Payne.
Yeah. And those he had 2 really, really cool and really, really technical offensive shots that he took, where he did a one step and then bounced in and then came back around, and then he did that hook shot kind of thing that he was doing too. Again, everybody was on point offensively, and it was a decent game offensively. We didn't shoot our minds out, but we shot above 32% shooting, and we didn't chuck up like 38 threes. So this is exactly what we need to do. High percentage shots close to the paint, out body, out athlete, and then make sure, to your point, Ben, against that zone, if you're passing around the perimeter, the goal is the ball is faster than what the zone can adjust. And the idea is that depending on what kind of zone they're playing, if they're playing a 2-3 zone or whatever they're playing, you're going to suck those guys out to the perimeter and then get it inside to the paint where there's only two guys with no help defense. And if your guys are in the paint paying attention and doing what they need to do, that's easy for them with our athleticism and our length to be able to score points or at least draw the foul. And that's what we didn't do in West Virginia, but that's what we did in Texas Tech. And I'm going to hang up and listen.
Yeah, well, I want to hear Josh and Alan's take on this game for sure. But I just want to add one more thing: is somebody who I think it speaks to the overall team and everybody kind of not only being a star in their own role for this team, but understanding their role for this team and taking their opportunities when they're presented. And a guy like DeMar Langford, who started out this season in the starting lineup and kind of lost his position a little bit as the season went on, for him to it's not going to really show up in the stat sheet. Only 2 points. He had 3 rebounds, but he had 2 huge steals in this game down the stretch to kind of continue that momentum going on. And he had 16 minutes in this game. They were 16, in my opinion, big minutes for him. So a guy like DeMar Langford is just kind of putting that stamp on the bench performance of this game. Doesn't show up completely in the stat sheet, but he made some huge plays in this game.
All right. Now Josh and Alan. I'm sorry. Alan, remember, because Josh is last.
Yes, I go last.
Always last.
No, I mean, it's exactly what everyone's saying. We played our game, and it's pretty much the exact opposite of the analysis I had for the West Virginia game, right? I mean, we did everything that we do well, and when we play our game like that, we generally win. I mean, the telling stat to me is the points in the paint. I mean, nearly tripling their output in the points in the paint was, I think, big for us. Obviously, we limited them. Our defense played a lot better. We forced, a good amount of turnovers. So, that's our game. And I think for me, the bigger takeaway, though, is that, we've seen ourselves have leads in a couple of games this year against big teams. And then we kind of, get worn out in the second half and we don't hold on to the lead. But it was really nice for them to fight through some adversity. There was a time where they were, I think, down 5 at one point, and then we had slim leads, and then, we were able to grow that lead and actually hold on to it. And we kind of, towards the end of the second half, just went wire to wire and just kind of, ended up, like Ben said, kind of blew them out there at the end. But it was good for them to actually hold on to the lead against a tough team, at home, and not, blow one of these games where, we've had other chances to win other games this year in the conference, but unfortunately have let leads slip away. And this time we were able to hold on and win. So I think that to me is the biggest takeaway. I think that shows some signs of maturity from the team, and they're able to walk away with their third top 25 win this season. So I think when you measure it in the quality of wins that we've had this year, it's the best season from that perspective.
Consistent offense. We've been talking about it all season long when they went on that stretch of wins, right? It was the consistency in the offense. That's the piece that's so up and down. And I think you called it out. If we can continue that, right, where we don't have those 3 minutes stretches of disappearing, or a ghost offense, as I like to call it. I'm terming it now. It's called the ghost offense. Where we
is that the University of Princeton offense?
Yes, it's the ghost offense where it you can see right through it. It doesn't show up, and you're ghosting the paint and the hoop. So there you go. All right, Josh Lazar, last but not least, but always last.
So Alan is 1,000% right. Like, take our entire West Virginia analysis and flip it pretty much on its head, and it's this game. And this is I'm not going to go deep in a rant, but this is the frustrating part about this team this season, because you can see it, dear listener or viewer. You can see this team do really, really well. You don't just beat top 25 teams randomly. You don't beat 3 of them randomly. I think we've only beaten 8 or 10 in our entirety of our basketball program, somewhere around that number.
11, yeah.
It's 11.
Yeah, 11.
And 3 are this year, and it's not like they are all ranked 20th or 25th somewhere, but it's just not. You can see how this team works, and the frustration happens that we can't do really well on the road. But a lot of teams in this conference can. Let's just be fair. But it's like the Cincinnati game. Like, the home games we should Stetson. The home games you should win. And I know people, BYU. These are games where I understand the other team is shooting lights out. But we have to get over the hump. And we've been talking about that all year. So in this game, I mean, every single thing that could go right did. Sounds like West Virginia at home too, doesn't it? So
well, I will say not everything went right, but a lot of things went right.
This is not what most would have expected after what happened in West Virginia. I think that could be fair.
I agree.
So let's maybe a little hyperbole, but this is the interesting part of what we've seen, and there are little pieces and parts of our basketball puzzle doing well. Now, I will say this: there are a lot of people who think we have no shot at anything after this season at this point, and I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. Because we have 2 opportunities, as we said in this podcast often, that we would not have had in the ASA, no way. In the American, probably not, but rarely. But in this conference,
I mean, the Cows are top 25, and they're talking about having to win their conference championship to make the tournament. I mean,
that's nuts, man. That's crazy. That's what happens when you lose Houston and other teams from your conference.
Yeah, and I think they won something like 13 in a row, and I don't want to talk about them. But that's the point. Like, all theoretically, the probability is low. But if we beat Iowa State, we have to beat Oklahoma State on the road. We beat Iowa State. We beat Houston. Dream with me for a second, and we knock out TCU. And win a couple of games,
That's a lot of ands, Josh.
I told you the probability is low. Dream with me. I think there's a scenario where people go, "Oh my God, I'm not drunk on hopium." All I'm saying is,
Yes, you are.
It's not over, Johnny. It's not over yet. And I really think do I think that's going to happen? Honestly, no. But the possibility of it, because of the conference we're in, is a lot different than most other conferences. I think we've done so much to not get on that stage or not be in the mouths of a lot of people, as we talked about in the GOL era. That maybe an NIT would be great, but we have the opportunity. Can we seize it?
That's
we got one shot.
And before we go into postseason, we do have a couple of other things to cover because postseason is next. So
yeah,
T.I. and Antonio Brown and Antonio Brown Jr. were on campus for this game. Antonio Brown Jr. as a recruit. And supposedly Antonio Brown was celebrating in the locker room with the guys. So it seems to be, from a recruiting standpoint, that went well. T.I., I used to love his music. I mean, I can't say I used to. I still like his music. But yeah, I mean, I just, you can have whatever you like, but, whatever.
Hey, don't steal my job.
Hey, now.
You're
I'm not the rap god like some of us around here, but I do listen to a lot of rap music.
Barely.
Like T.I.
Yeah, T.I. is great.
The other thing is, Fear the Franz is real. We had another over 9,000 seat crowd. There were over 9,000 butts in the seats. The Big 12 difference is real. We were averaging 5,000 at the high end in 2019 in the American. And for conference, we're sitting at 89, 84 for the conference, and that includes weeknight games. So, that's huge. It's huge growth for UCF basketball. All right. Now that we've talked about all those great things, let's go back. We were talking about this every week, postseason, right? So I feel like bubble team chances are slim to none. That's pretty much gone, in my opinion. However, NIT hopes. We were talking about NIT hopes last week and what we thought this did with this. I feel like if we win one more game and maybe one in the tournament, solid seed. If they take the top 9 out of the Big 12, we will have 2 seeds that go to the NIT, which were so even if they take the top 8 to the tournament, there's still a high likelihood. We're sitting, I think, at what, 10 now?
No, 12.
12. Okay, we dropped down again.
So we wouldn't make it in that scenario.
No, we need to win 2 or 3 games. We need to win 2 or 3 games at this point.
What is the rule? They only can take 2 from every conference now for the NIT?
I think they start at 2.
Well, what they do is they will take from power conferences. They will take the top number 1, the top basketball team that was not taken for the NCAA tournament.
It's just one team. That's it.
Well, they start there, and then they take 2 total from the Power 5 conferences, and then everything else is ranked by who the highest teams are in RPI after that. Which after this Texas Tech game or net, sorry, I'm thinking baseball again. Net, right, in the net. So you have we were at 67 or 68 again, because remember we dropped down into the 70s. We popped back up after that Texas Tech win. We pushed Texas Tech out of the top 25, so I don't know if that's good or bad for us, but I'll take it either way. So our net ranking, because of the conference that we play in, is still high enough for us to be considered for that NIT. Because if you take those conference champions out that go to the tournament, and then you take 9 or 10 out of the Big 12, or 8 or 9 out of the Big 12, and then the Big East gets 3 or 4, etc. That leaves that means you can dig pretty deep into the Big 12. And the one thing we have on our resume for the NIT anyway that helps us is we've got a lot of quad 1, we've got 3, I think maybe 4 quad 1 wins. But just for example, with the Cows, they have 0 quad 1 games, and we've got 3 or 4 wins. And playing in the conference that we do, there's something to be said for how good of a team we were. You know what I mean? If you plop us in the American this year with the team that we have, I think we blow everybody's doors off. So that's kind of how they look at it. So I think NIT for sure. I think we still have a pretty good shot at that. What do you guys think?
I think also we got to remember that it's really bunched at the bottom half of the conference as far as record goes. I mean, we're 5-9 in conference right now. Texas, which is not even a bubble team right now, I mean, they're pretty close to a lock to make the NCAA tournament, unless they fall apart in the last 4 games. They're 6-8 in the conference. I mean, Kansas State is 6-8, Cincinnati's 5-9. So like we have a chance with a win or 2 to basically jump other teams as well, not just improve our net rankings with a win or 2 in the remaining schedule, but also jump, some teams within our own conference for just the conference standings, which it sounds like I haven't read up too much about the the NIT like qualifications, but it sounds like that would improve our chances greatly. So yeah, I agree with you that 1 or 2 more wins of the remaining games that we have would almost seem like a lock for the NIT. And we're sitting at 14-12 right now. Last season we made the NIT with 19 wins 18 wins in the regular season, and then so yeah, I mean two less wins in a exponentially better conference overall seems like, even with the new rules, would allow us entry into the NIT. And I think for this team especially, and maybe some of the players that we're losing as well, like as far as seniors that we have on this team are just kind of a 1-year rental. I mean, it's not a disrespectful acceptance of an NIT bid at all. Like there's no reason why this team shouldn't look forward to a chance at playing in the NIT. But I'll just say one more thing on that as far as our postseason chances, and as far as what the amount of ands that Josh inserted earlier into
I believe it was 4 ands.
Well, there's 4 remaining games, so yeah. The amount of ands that he inserted into that statement, I mean, it kind of doesn't matter if the 4 of us on this podcast and the many people that are listening or watching, it doesn't matter what Knight Nation believes as far as our chances of running the table or winning against these 2 top 10 opponents that we have coming into our house this week and next week. It doesn't matter what we believe. It matters what the guys in the locker room believe. And I honestly think that they, more than anybody, believe that they are capable of doing it. They're capable of running the table. They can go into Oklahoma State and take care of business. They certainly can take care of business at home against anyone, and they've proven that this season to themselves. And so, we'll see what happens.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, the NIT is starting to feel a little bit lock-ish. I don't want to jinx or anything, but a couple more wins, and obviously if we can snatch a win in the conference tournament, I think that should lock it up. I mean, exactly. We made it with 18 regular season wins last year. We hopefully get a couple more this year, and obviously the conference has the name brand behind it, and a lot of teams are going to make it to the postseason, whether it's the NIT or the Big Dance. So I think we're there. The dream scenario of the actual tournament feels like it's pretty much dead, but who knows? Maybe we surprise and get some big wins here at the end. But yeah, I mean, I think the NIT, I think where we all expected us to be this year, when we were, I think most of us saying the over under for conference wins was 4. And I don't think we thought the 4 that we got were going to be the 4 that we actually did end up getting. So you couple that with the, making potentially an NIT appearance. I think that's a great year, and we have something really to root for in the NIT. And I think, who knows, maybe we can match that Final Four run we did in the NIT back with BJ and Taco and those guys. So we'll see what happens, but I think it should be a good finish.
All right. So having said all of that, and we've got 2 new vocabulary words for the listeners that are TK1 exclusives: lock-ish and yellish. So I don't know where we're coming up with this stuff, but we're starting a whole new Webster's dictionary for TK1 fans. What
Knightsters
has Johnny earned himself another season as head coach? And I'm going to shut up and listen on this one because I find this is interesting. We all know Ben says yes. So what's everybody think?
I think we're going to learn pretty quickly how much the boosters.
Josh, let me correct myself. I shouldn't say has he earned himself another season, because I think the worst case scenario is they'll let him play out his contract. Has he earned himself another contract extension?
Okay, that's a huge statement. I will say this. I think we're going to see if UCF is now really a power conference. And by that, I mean, do the boosters run the show-ish, if you want to add new vocabulary? So allegedly, there seems to be a little back and forth between our athletics department from the boosterish people. And the reality is that if this is true, I'll make that assumption. And the rumors are that the boosters want to see a change, allegedly. And
there's also rumors that are certain donors are holding back money because of that too.
Correct. So let's just say that's true. Our Mohatra has a decision to make. Our AD has a decision to make. Does he work within the framework of seeing what we've seen and believing there could be growth next year and staying the course? Or does he, I would say, quote, give in to the boosters, unquote, and make a change? So do I personally think he's deserved an extension? Yes, with strings. Do the extension.
Okay,
have the
stop,
buyout lower?
Stop riding the fence. I hate when you guys do that. This is yes or
it's
no.
Not riding
yes
the fence.
No.
No,
yes or
no. The answer is no, but you have to do something. You can't have someone on a 1-year contract and nothing after it. It's like in football. The recruiting is going to be a problem. So you give him an extension with a lower buyout that's reasonable and go. But no, he hasn't. I'm sorry. It's been 9 years, 8 years. I think he's a great coach. Like we've said on here many times, I let him coach my daughter in basketball. I think he's a great man. I think we're doing well, but I just don't see us getting over the hump of being an annual NCAA team in the new era of NIL. I just don't. That doesn't mean he will get one.
All right.
I actually agree a lot with Josh here. I just don't see us getting over the hump, but I want to, preface it by saying that I don't think it's Johnny's fault. Like, I really don't think there's too many coaches in all of college basketball that could coach the Knights to be a consistent tournament team with the current resources. I think we talked about even on Ben's very first ever podcast on here, and we asked him what it would take for it. And it's the resources that we just don't have. And I know that's going to increase as we get deeper and deeper into our Power 5 era and we get more great donations like we got the other day. But I just don't think when you're looking at the college basketball landscape, UCF basketball hasn't really ever made the type of noise that UCF football did. There's not a lot of excitement there. And I know we've recently brought in a couple of 5-star recruits, and I think Johnny's recruiting has looked a lot better the last couple of years moving into the Power 5 conference. But I don't know. I just feel like I don't know a name that's necessarily like way better than him and that would kill it here. But I just think at some point there needs to be a change. And it feels like 9 years with a lot of underwhelming performances. I mean, I know he had a couple of really good years, but overall, I just don't feel like he's the guy that's going to take us over the hump. He never did much at Stanford. I think he made one tournament, one NIT. I don't know. It's great man, great coach, like Josh said, but I just don't feel. I feel like there needs to be someone maybe a little younger, fresher, someone that's kind of got that Frost vibe. Give it to UCF basketball. And I really don't think it's his fault. I really don't think many coaches could have done a lot better. I just feel like at some point you need to kind of change it up, because it does seem like our ceiling has somewhat been hit with him, and maybe that will change with some better recruiting in the next couple of years. And we've already surprised this year, but if I had to put a gun to my head, got to give an answer, I would say move on from him, especially if he's gonna be a lame duck coach with 1 year left.
All right, Ben.
I think I have a hard time disagreeing with either Josh or Alan in this topic about when you put it that way, when you put the contract into it, as far as like, is he going to get a contract extension after this season? But I also will also slightly caveat that with, I don't know if it's necessary. I know it's like unheard of, like as far as maybe the type of conference that we're in, or the level of college basketball that we're involved in now, for a coach to be on a 1 year deal. But like, I mean, how does that really affect recruiting that much more? I mean, do these kids really? I mean, these kids are hearing all sorts of messages from competing coaches all the time about why they shouldn't choose UCF over whatever conference that they're trying, or whatever team that they're trying to recruit these kids to. And so I don't really think personally it's a big feather in the cap of an opposing coach to say, oh, I don't know about Johnny Dawkins, he's only on a 1 year deal, because these kids should know well enough that I'm going to go to the school that I'm most comfortable with. And the reason why I'm going to this is because of the coaches that are there and the coaches that are recruiting me. And honestly, there's been plenty of times where coaches turn it around, and mid-season they're provided with a contract extension, and it is what it is. And so I don't know if that's necessarily going to hurt recruiting if he goes into this final season of his contract without a new deal, and we're moving forward with there. So I think that's you can call me the king of asterisks all you want, but like I honestly don't think that a 1 year deal is like a death knell to Johnny Dawkins and recruiting, or actually coaching through his last year of his contract, because we all know that anything can happen. Granted, we just got our fifth win in our conference season. A lot of us predicted less than that, and they're predicted to finish 14th in their conference. We're only last in our conference, and we're only 12th right now. Now, we talked about how much we're bunched up, so all of a sudden we could finish 8th in the conference, or we could finish last. You don't know what's going to happen with these 4 games left. But certainly has gained another year. I think there's no doubt about that. But I don't see it as a huge issue if he doesn't get a contract extension in this offseason. And I'll say lastly to that, what I talked about before this season started, especially actually right before the conference season started, is there's two main reasons why coaches get fired. You're horrible for an extended period of time, and it just becomes obvious to everybody that you have to go. A change has got to be made, and the only change that the changes that the administrators have the most power over is to fire the head coach. The other main reason why sports coaches get fired is multiple seasons of what they see as right on the cusp, but we're just not quite getting over the hump. And I don't think there's any reason to just sit here and just kind of blindly defend Dawkins, because in that second scenario, because it could exist it doesn't matter what the fan base mind is, it could exist in the administration's mind, in the athletic director's mind, and more importantly than the fan base, the actual boosters and the money, the ones that control the money in the situation. It could be that kit scenario in their mind. And so it kind of doesn't matter what I think about that second scenario, but I think of the two scenarios, obviously the second one exists more than the first. There could be a question of, is this about as far as we can go? We can surprise teams, we can play well at home, we can win against ranked opponents, but is it going to be enough where we're going to actually take one big step forward in the upcoming seasons with some of these recruits that we have coming in with this formula? So that remains to be seen, but I think for sure he's gonna I don't see much of an issue if he goes into next season without that extension.
Okay, so for me, a few things to consider since you're talking about the dynamics of the contract extension, and not just the question, because it is a convoluted question. We've been saying this all season that this was going to be a hard decision. Few things. One, if the boosters are saying, "Hey, we're withholding donations because of this coach," that's one consideration for Terry Mohajir.
Yeah.
Second consideration, Johnny Dawkins makes by far the lowest in all of the Big 12 at $1.2 million. Third consideration, Ben, I'm going to argue your point for the reason that you argued the point, but just have a different take on it. So let me say it this way, or a different conclusion. I do think it affects recruiting. And the reason why I say that is you're either a one and done recruit, or you're expecting to go to the NBA your second or third year with a team. In the era of NIL, it's not unheard of for a 5-star or a high 4-star to get $500,000 contracts. We don't have that type of NIL money. We just don't yet, right? Not for basketball.
What does that have to do with Dawkins, though?
I'll tell you here. So the point is with Dawkins, and to the point of Terry Mohajir has to look at it and say, okay, are we building up to something or not? We've got a 5-star that's supposed to be coming in, our first 5-star ever in any sport. Dante Culpepper would have been, but they weren't doing ratings back then. So first 5-star, you've got Mikey Williams, and then you've got another high level 4-star, and you've got like Antonio Brown Jr., who is also a high level 4-star, that are all looking like they're going to commit. And they're committing to Johnny Dawkins. We would not be able to afford those 5 players. We would not be able to afford with our NIL money. We just wouldn't. We've probably got somewhere between $600,000 to $800,000 in NIL money. That's one of those players. So that means that those players that are coming in are taking less money to play for Johnny Dawkins. And if there's no commitment by the university to Johnny Dawkins to stay beyond 1 year, I doubt those players give up that extra $250,000, $300,000 of NIL money to come play for UCF basketball. That's where it comes back to Johnny Dawkins. And that's why I'm saying, if you're Terry Mohajir, you got the boosters on one end potentially. You've got the fact that you've got recruiting where it is, and you've got a team of players. And we all know 2 or 3 players on a basketball team can take you from mediocre to superstars, right? And, you've got someone that you can still afford to pay $1.2 million for the next year because, right, we don't start making Big 12 money. We're still on half shares right now, right? Which means it's all going towards football. It's not going to basketball. We won't be able to afford that big coach for another academic year, which means not this year that we're going to be getting that. At the end of this academic year, we'll be getting the half shares, right? Then we'll have another year of half shares before we start rolling in the full contract cash that we're going. So there's a money dynamic. So if I'm looking at it from, okay, performance-wise, has Johnny Dawkins earned an extension? To me, no. He has not earned that, but you guys knew that at before preseason, I was saying that he's not the guy, right? And that I thought that they would allow him to transition into the Big 12, right? To take us into the Big 12. and then, shake it out. Yeah, I was even saying that on Nightline. And then they would make a decision to separate from Johnny at that point. But with those monetary considerations and the timing of our full shares, what I could see, what I think, has he done what he needs to earn a contract to lead us into the Big 12? No, he hasn't shown me that. Is UCF in the monetary situation where we extend him another year just to see what this recruiting class does at a lower salary with a low buyout? I could see that happening for those reasons, those financial reasons. As
at a lower salary than what he's making right now, or just like kind of
his continued low salary, right? So maybe, okay, we like Johnny, he's done good. We're not going to pay him 1.2 million anymore. We'll pay him 1.6, 1.7 million. And in exchange for that, we'll get a lower buyout on a shorter term contract, something like that, so he makes a little bit extra more and we have the flexibility to cut him loose if we need to. That's what if I'm Terry Mohajir, that's the play for me, because that gets you the recruits at least on campus. And, it keeps you with a low salary. Because if we went to go get another coach right now, everybody's screaming about Huggins and everybody else, we're paying more than $1.2 million for that contract. The floor for the Big 12 is $3.5 million, and we cannot afford that right now. Everything that we've got is going into football. And once we start hitting our stride with full Big 12 shares, then I could see us going out there and getting someone that can compete. So that's what I think will happen. Has he earned a contract extension? No. Can he earn a contract extension? Hey, he brings these guys in, blows it out next year? Maybe. Give him a 2 or 3 year deal. Yeah. I don't think Johnny Dawkins is the future of UCF basketball, and in the Big 12. And the other thing is we've got a time clock now. Brett Yomark is getting ready to try to sell men's rights for men's basketball, and an impending potential realignment scenario again after this contract is over with, because it's only a 5 or 6 year deal with this TV deal. Once that's over with, UCF's out in the woods again, potentially trying to be someone who people want to pick up if there is more consolidation. So, there's a lot of factors in play, and that's why ADs get paid a heck of a lot more than I do, but that's how I would play it. And I think that Terry will play it that way. That's what I'm predicting right now.
Yeah, the minutia about these contracts much better than I do, and so I'll say I agree that that's a scenario that I think could be likely as far as the 1 year extension, like you just mentioned, kind of keep him at his salary that is lower than the average in the Big 12, and allow him a little bit of allow the program to have a little bit of continuity looking forward. I guess the only, maybe slight difference I'd say from what you were saying is in the transfer portal NIL era, like I don't know what these recruits are necessarily thinking about. I don't know if they necessarily care. I think they probably care less than they have in the past about the amount of years on their contract, because if something doesn't work out, regardless of what the coach's contract is, if something doesn't work out in their first season that they have here, they can just move on. And so like, I think I agree with you that they're coming to this school because of Johnny Dawkins, but I think that they're comfortable with the safety net that they have of if this doesn't work out in any way, if Johnny Dawkins isn't who I thought he was, or if Johnny Dawkins he gets fired in his first year, the great thing is I can just move on. And so I don't know if it's necessarily as entailed in recruiting as it was even 5 years ago about how the administration cares about the coaching staff. They're coming. If they're coming because of the coach, then and that's if they're coming because of the coach, which is the scenario that you laid out, Roger, then they're comfortable with, if something were to happen, then they have the safety net of being able.
And I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, in a scenario that would happen, but if I'm them or their handlers, because there's going to be handlers, whether it's an uncle or a brother a father or an
It can
actual
be their
agent.
parents, you know,
or an agent. Well, no, because these days there's agents, right? So, or it's Adidas, who's their future soccer or their future sneaker deal, right? Or shoe deal, because this is a 5-star coming into a program, a highly rated 5-star, right? They're going to be providing some guidance too as to where, because they want them to have the best stage possible to when they invest in that deal for them. So, for me, I see it as if I am giving up $200,000 or $300,000 to go to go play for this coach, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be there beyond 1 year, I'm not going to give up the $200,000 to $300,000. I'm sorry, I'm just not. I
think we'll just agree to disagree on that then.
And that's fine. I'm just saying it's a different game because of it too, and it's out in the open. All right. I think we've beat that one to death all season long, including this season or this episode. Let's transition a little bit here and stop talking basketball and talk a little football.
Do you mind if I do what I usually do and just say one more thing about hoops?
Oh my God!
Yes.
And we could have gotten this at the very end of the show, which is fine. But I do want to say that the Iowa State game this Saturday, another top 10 opponent coming into Edition Financial Arena, is the UCF alumni weekend, basketball alumni weekend. A lot of us who played basketball throughout the years are extremely excited. This is something that we circle on our calendar every season. So there'll be a lot of basketball alumni in the house on Saturday afternoon, late afternoon / evening. And during the game on Saturday, during halftime, I believe, they are honoring the first NCAA tournament team, the 1994 NCAA tournament UCF basketball team that was led by the head coach that was my head coach at UCF, and Kirk Spira. So for the first time since he left UCF, Kirk Spira is going to be back on campus at an official UCF event. And so I think it's worth noting, and it's an exciting thing to have him come back, and hopefully much like the first ranked opponent that we ever beat, which was my freshman year when we beat College of Charleston, number 25 in the country. Hopefully we can get another ranked win this year.
All right. So what Ben just said is he's going to be setting up interviews with a lot of former players and Coach Kirk Spira. You heard it here, folks. First. So Ben's gonna sell the program, but no, that's exciting, and exciting for the team, and look in the stands. Section 105, 104 typically has a smattering of former UCF basketball players there at that 104. And right on the corner of 105, Matt Williams is always there. A bunch of different former players are there. Dwight McCombs has been back. There's been a bunch of people that I've seen at the games because I sit over in that section. All right. Now I have Ben's permission to move on to UCF football. So let's talk a little UCF football. And there, you would think there's not much to talk about, but we've talked about it all off season. And first things first, spring game is only 2 weeks away, folks. So February 20 or spring, not spring game, spring camp is only 2 weeks away. February 26, 2024 will be the start of spring camp. Obviously, we won't see a lot of it because Coach Malzahn likes to keep things tight to the vest. But hopefully we'll see some interviews and hear about some of these transfer players that are coming in, because we've got a whole lot of new faces and quote unquote upgrades that we're bringing to the table this year. And hopefully some of last year's recruits and some of the new ones will find their way onto the rosters. The biggest question mark for me right now is defensive backs and who's going to play where, because we brought a bunch of defensive backs in.
Probably bought.
I can't talk today. Leave me alone.
No. I think the bot was probably correct with NIL at this point.
Well, well, bought and brought, a bunch of new players in the transfer portal, a lot of exciting players that we're excited about. The Cincinnati Twins, well, triplets, really. I'm going to call them triplets because we got Montgomery, who's also going to be in the running back room. We got some new faces, but we've got some old faces too. So wide receiver is going to be really interesting to me. Defensive backs are going to be really interesting to me to see who shakes out where, who's playing the night position, who's playing the safety position. We've got some linebackers that could go safety as well. So I think there's a lot to be sorted out in our secondary with a lot of really, really good players. Defensive tackles, we have Lee Hunter back this year. John Walker is back this year. And somebody that we missed last year for most of the season, Ricky Barber, is also back, who played really, really well the season before, but was out with injury. So it'll be interesting to see there. DNs, you're going to see some new faces there, as well as tight end. There's going to be, this is the chance for Malachi Lawrence to really, have him make himself felt at the defensive end position. And the other side is really a crapshoot, to be frank, on who's going to be playing that defensive end position. And tight ends, we've got a new blocking tight end. We had to replace, a tight end, Alex Holler, who'd been here probably 22 years of his life, and had more gray in his beard than I do. But it'll be a new face there for blocking tight end, and then hopefully a coming out party for two pass catching tight ends. So we'll see what we have there, but the defensive backs really is going to be the one I have my eye on. I think running back room, we all know what we've got there, with the exception of Miles Montgomery coming in from Cincinnati, and he laid the pain last year. But there's going to be a lot of position battles outside of KJ Jefferson for this team this year, and maybe Kobe Hudson. So anything you guys are looking forward to? Do you think we snag another receiver? What's the positions to watch this year?
Since I'm last, I'm going to go first. I want to see what happens with this linebacker room. I really do. We brought in so many people, and we all know we needed to. We had Johnson, sometimes Yates, and what else, right? So I think that's going to be really interesting, and it's a weird thing to be interested about, but I feel like we know who the QB is.
We've been asking this question for literally 5 years, from Nightline into this podcast. Yeah. Ben can attest to this. What did we say every single year? Linebacker.
Or I guess we're just not like Penn State, where we're linebacker U or anything like that. We definitely
until Tatum left.
That's fair, and that was nil based too. So, or NIL, however you want to say it. So to me, I feel like you're right. I'd like to see what happens with the wide receivers, but relatively speaking, there's enough talent in that room. We kind of know what we're getting. QB, running back, we kind of know what we're getting. I would say even on the lines, within reason, we generally know what we're getting.
Outside of
the back, back four in defense, probably about the same. But that linebacker position has been a question mark, right, for such a long time, and part of it's because we've had people leave, right? Center, although if Matt Lead stayed, he would be gone at this point too. Same thing with Tatum Bethune, but we've had some really, really good players at the position leave to NIL. So I think linebacker is going to be interesting, because if we can solidify that position, I feel like that's going to help the overall defense that we already feel is going to be pretty good. And I will say, because of what I do at UCF, sometime in March, I'm actually going to be able to get to a practice, and I will probably have to sign something off saying I'm not going to talk about it. So I probably won't. Well, if I sign something, I won't. But I'm really excited to see what's going to come out, and excited for the spring game too.
All right, I will agree with the exception of we have no idea what we're getting on the defensive backs. We've signed so many transfers that we have no idea who's going to play safety, and we have no idea who's going to play defensive back and cornerback. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I feel like we have more than just 4 potentially good players to figure out where they're going to be in safety and corner and all that. I feel more comfortable knowing there are enough people there that have enough experience that I'm not freaked out because no one's basically coming back. And that's our linebacker room for pretty much.
All right. Ben, thoughts?
I'm shocked that the spring game is 2 weeks away. I feel like this, I don't know, maybe
Not
it's just
spring game. I corrected myself. Spring practice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Spring practice is 2 weeks away. Okay, so yeah, my bad. Spring. I'm excited that spring practice is a couple weeks away. I guess because like I said, I've been definitely in basketball mode. But yeah, I mean, I'll echo what you guys said. I don't think that I don't think the offense has much to worry about. I mean, we've got some studs coming back, and obviously you insert KJ Jefferson into that, it should be a pretty good scenario. But obviously we gotta make sure that we're right in the trenches and we on both sides of the ball, and we gotta make sure that our defensive backfield is shored up. But I am expecting improvement going into next season, and looking forward to what we are able to see during these 15-second clips that we'll get of spring practice here and there during the first few, and rumors coming out of the scrimmages, and little things like that. And then of course
10 seconds of those are quality stretching. Okay.
Quality stretching. Yeah, we got to make sure we're nice and limber. We don't want anybody to get injured in spring practice, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it should be fun, and we should be able to, see what we can kind of set up going into next season. But I'll defer to Alan on more of the football talk as far as this goes.
New strength and conditioning coach, and we'll see how that plays itself out. We've been seeing a lot of workout videos coming out of UCF football recently, and then new defensive coordinator, right, and a lot of new players. Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectations going into next year are really high, obviously a lot higher than year one. When you just talk about bringing in a veteran quarterback who's Arkansas's all-time leader in passing yards and school history, a 5-year SEC veteran, and you couple that with all the talented transfers they brought in, the expectations are high. But at the same time, there is a lot of questions. I mean, this is probably in the Gus era the most changes I've seen in one offseason. Just when you talk about the amount of coaches that have changed, changed DC, OC, cornerback, linebacker, wide receivers coach, strength coach, and then all of the transfers they brought in. And then also a lot of key players did leave. When you talk about leaders on the team, JRP, Tremont Morris Brash, a lot of these leaders that have, Salazar, a lot of these leaders have been on the team, captains on the defense and a captain of the offense like JRP. There's a lot of big changes, but there's also a ton of talent coming back. I mean, RJ Harvey and Kobe Hudson, like the offense, like we all just talked about. And then I think the big change that they made this year is they actually brought in true veteran experienced players at linebacker and defensive back, not, projects to work on, that are going to take a couple of years to develop, or guys that used to be 4 or 5 stars. These are guys that are proven veterans at SEC schools and ACC schools, and or even some in the FCS that are, have been very good now for a couple of years. So the expectations are really high. I think they should be. But there is, we got to figure out, I think, who's going to play at DB. But there's a lot of guys returning to Kai Martinez and Brandon Adams and Damari Henderson. So there's a lot of guys there that, got a significant amount of playing time last year. But you got to figure out where all the pieces go, because I think there was 16 transfers roughly. And then, you got to figure out who's going to play at linebacker. Obviously some of those defensive back spots, like you mentioned, Roger, then, and then I think Gus did an outstanding job filling all of the, voids we had in the portal. But yeah, if I were going to take one more position, get greedy, I would say, yeah, one more wide receiver. I think I'll go as far as say I think that's our thinnest position on the team, not just offense. I've never seen a UCF wide receiver core this thin. It feels like behind Kobe Hudson and Xavier Townsend, there's nobody proven. Like, yes, there's guys that Goldie Lawrence, guys that have a lot of hype and stuff like that, but there's not a single player outside those two that are proven. So losing Javon Baker, I think, was a big loss. So if they can go out and get one more experienced wide receiver, like they did at other positions, like linebacker and defensive back, I'd feel really good about this team. But even if they don't, there's enough weapons, but they're one or two injuries away from wide receiver from having like zero experience at that position. But other than that, I think the expectations are warranted.
Awesome. Yep. I think you're 100% correct on that. I think we all said we went all in and on this recruiting transfer class in order to make sure, after KJ Jefferson signed on, that we went all out for a conference championship this year. So it'll be exciting to see what happens. Another exciting bit of news is the annual Uniswag Awards. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but UCF always does well. And, the Florida Gators and the Miami Hurricanes, they had black jerseys this year, blackout jerseys or dark jerseys, whatever you want to call them. So our Canaveral blue Space U uniforms are out there. So make sure you give that a vote this week so we can keep the streak going and deter the Gators and the Hurricanes. So another thing that we've been kind of talking about is this whole ACC saga with the FSU. There's a lot more stuff coming out on that, where, some people are saying it looks like the ACC is setting itself up to negotiate with FSU, and this is basically just a posturing thing. ESPN has come out and said basically all the contracts that were out there that FSU released into the wild are intellectual property. So ESPN's not exactly happy with FSU and what they're doing, and basically saying, hey, look, this contract and how we do business, that's a competitive advantage for us on how we write these contracts, and you releasing them, that there's a reason we have a stipulation to keep them, out of the public eye. And now by you doing this, this puts us at a competitive disadvantage because other people know what our terms are and can build a contract around that to try to offset what we're doing. So that was an interesting take, as far as that's concerned. But it's looking more and more likely, like as in most negotiations, lawyers get involved, try to position themselves best, and then negotiate an actual exit. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what happens with that. If I were FSU, I would really hope that I had some sort of golden ticket already prepared. Otherwise, stirring this pot would be suicidal, because we all know what happens if you go against the mouse. We've seen it, the Big East, the ACC a little bit now. And, it'll be really, really interesting to see how that shakes out. So I'm assuming that FSU has a golden ticket. The only other thing I would say is if ESPN wants the ACC to break up, which I don't know why they would, because they've got an advantageous deal right now. It's never before in realignment history has negotiations like this played out in the media with this much publicity. So it's a really, really interesting time with realignment. The Big 12, I mean, you kind of saw some of that in this last round of realignment, and then obviously the Pac-12 and everything that went on with that. But an individual school trying to get out of a conference, you've never seen anything play out like this before. Anything you guys want to add to that?
I love the fact that I've seen it on X, formerly known as Twitter, how FSU, like, I think ESPN was alluding to what they're doing could be a felony, and there's now all these memes of FSU and felonies and going around.
There's no felony that's going to happen here. This is all posturing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just like the entertainment value of all of that. what really amazes me is that, I mean, FSU has been trying to figure this out for years. And I'm sure Tallahassee, the state and government in Tallahassee was really, really behind all this. Not the government was behind it, as in, if FSU wanted to do something, everyone was probably all in on it, right? We're good to go. We have your back, that type of backing. And I'm not sure this is playing out how they want it to be, but in all reality, they do have no choice. Like, if they want to leave a conference and they have to break a grant of rights, no one's ever broke a grant of rights before. So that is really, I get there between a rock and a hard place. It's really hard to watch UCF make more money than UFSU.
It has nothing to do with that, in my opinion. It has everything.
I know.
No. It has everything to do with the Power 2 consolidating and then trying to 100% discussion before somebody else takes their seat at the table. That's what I think this is.
100%. And while I still think that there is going to be a space for a third conference, monetarily there is not. But you're right. I mean, you're right. It doesn't hurt that we will be making more money than them. And that, I believe, it's not a factor of what's going on now, but I must ruffle some feathers. So this is going to be great entertainment. And I can't wait to see what the outcome is, because if you could break a grant of rights, even if it's a good negotiation with a good amount of money, FSU is not the only one gone.
All right.
The ACC is toast.
All right. Ben, did you want to add anything?
No, you guys about covered it. It's a fascinating situation. It's just, with this amount of money involved, it's just going to be kind of like some true business reality TV played out right in front of us.
Yep. All right. So the Jerry Springer of college football realignment. All right. Alan, I know you are on a tight schedule. We're going to talk a little UCF baseball, but we're going to let you do your Oxymoronic stat of the week, because I know you have to jet. So, Alan, let me bring up your banner.
Bring it up.
What's that?
Bring it up.
I said, bring it up.
There it is. We brought it up. So, what is your Alan's Oxymoronic stat of the week?
All right, so I brought in a little more UCF basketball this week.
Oh, man, we just can't get away from hoops. Ben won't let us move on. Now you won't let us move on. Oh,
Listen.
It's the only thing that has a big enough sample size to do some good stats. But so it's interesting. So I was looking at, obviously, Sellers is our leading scorer, and DJ is right behind him. But I think Ben alluded to it that, DJ has really picked up his scoring, his offense recently. So in the first, DJ only scored 15 points or more just 6 times in the first 15 games of the season, but has now scored over 15 points in 5 of the last 7 games. And also, Sellers led the team in scoring in 10 of the first 18 games, but DJ has now led them in 5 games in a row in 6 of the past 7. And then one other little bonus that I had was the point in the paint battle. We talked about that today. So when we lose the point in the paint battle, we are 5-5 this year, but when we win, we're 9-5. And then 2 games we tied with the other team for points in the paint. So clearly we're well above 500 when we win that battle in the paint.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely interesting stats. And I'm wondering, is that a good thing that DJ is carrying that much of the load offensively, or is that Sellers kind of slipping back and not playing as well? Or, because we talk a lot about in our wins how the bench strength has come through and played really, really well. Is that a good thing that DJ is carrying that much of the offensive load?
I think as long as he keeps his turnovers down, it's just ride the hot hand, because he's having him shooting. I think that's been there are 2 things that I've been most impressed with as we've gone into Big 12 play with DJ is he's reduced his turnovers, he's taking care of the ball, but then also his shot throughout this season has looked better from start to finish, but a significant improvement over last season. Just really impressive how well he's shot the ball from the 3-point line versus what he was doing last year, which was very inconsistent.
All right. All right. So that wraps it up for Alan's Oxymoronic stats of the week. He completely threw us off our game this week by taking us out of our normal thing. But let's talk a little UCF baseball here. I know he said stats, but stats are coming for UCF baseball. They are 5-0 under head coach Rich Wallace, which I'm going to throw an asterisk on because there was one game that we were winning and then we kind of lost. We were losing, and then there was rain, and then
didn't lose it.
I know we didn't lose it technically, but we
got to play the whole game.
I know. And we were up going into the inning before that. So
yeah.
Anyway, bottom line is they're 5-0. We talked with Coach Wallace about Sonny D, and he's batting .524 right now.
That's kind of good, right?
24 is ridiculously good. And Sanford was not a bad team. They played really, really well last year. So this wasn't necessarily a gimme. Andrew Estrella is also making his presence known. What's interesting is the first 4 games, it was all about, I won't call it small ball, but, hitting singles, hitting doubles, but not necessarily going for home runs. Whereas last year, a lot of our scoring was from home runs. And this last game, we had a lot of home runs. We had 2 grand slams in a row. So the bats seem to be coming alive a little bit. They were a little slow originally, but it looks like they're coming alive. The big question is going to be pitching again. We saw some great pitching performances. We saw some not so great pitching performances in the first 5 games. And there's not much you can take from that just yet. But Ben Vespi came back and pitched a heck of a game, which is good for us because he's been injured.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a great pitcher before he was injured, and it seems like he's fully healed now and is bringing some of the heat back. And hopefully, with what Coach Wallace said about making sure that they're giving the proper rest and making sure those arms are rested properly, and the number of not necessarily be on a pitch count, but the number of innings that are going to be pitched are going to be spread out a little bit more. Hopefully that means we have a little bit more longevity and the arms don't die towards the end of the season, which we've seen happen before. That was one of the knocks on the previous coaching regime. But, impressive. They're fun games when you're run ruling, 2 out of 3 in a series. That's pretty impressive stuff. And some of the other Florida teams are not doing as well. Miami, not throwing anybody under the bus, but throwing them under the bus, and FSU as well. So,
and Florida lost their opener against a lesser opponent as well. Yeah.
They also got washed out. They had a couple. They might have gotten a couple of shots back too. So, but still,
but they still lost, and so hot start for Rich Wallace. He mentioned Bithlow in one of his post-game interviews. So if you want to know if this is a hometown guy or not, and the pride of Orlando, anybody who mentions Bithlow in a post-game presser is aces in my book. So we still need to make sure we get him on. He was there at the last game. Get him again later this season. But I just want to give a shout out to Rich, and as basketball winds down, we'll be talking a lot more baseball because so far the returns are good, and we'll see how they do against better competition as the Cows are coming home to play at the John. Sorry, I laugh every time. I know why we call it that, but it's the Cow. What I'm thinking is cow patties at the John. That's
at the John,
I'm putting together right now.
I've noticed on social media a lot the JEP seems to be catching on. GEP or JEP. Yeah. So I don't know. Oh, maybe that's the new nickname for it. But as you said, Roger, I mean, it's a small sample size, 5 games in, but we have 6 players right now batting over 400 for the season. So the batting, especially average, but then a few players in Australia and Sundin in particular, but Australia with back-to-back games with a grand slam. I mean, I don't care what level of baseball that is. That's pretty incredible. But you got to get 3 guys on base in order to even have an opportunity at a grand slam. And so the bats overall have been hot. And like you said, we'll see. Early returns look okay on pitching. We'll see what happens. But absolutely, I think the relief pitching has been, as we expected, pretty spot on. We'll see what we can get from the starters, but Nazir Victor, Kramer has been great. The big 6'5" kid that's like 270. Like his name is escaping me right now, but I'll pull it up here really quick. He has been he's throwing heat up. Alex Galvin is the guy I'm trying to think of that came in relief against Miami. He's got a heck of a fastball. And then one last guy I'll mention in the early season so far that I think has helped overall is Danny Neary behind the plate. I think his catching so far defensively for sure has been spot on. And I think that allows Andrew Sundin to get the proper amount of reps behind the plate because he's a great defensive catcher as well. But it kind of gives him the like leeway to be a DH and just kind of take those rests in between catching outings that I think is really important. And it probably leads to him hopefully continuing on with his hot start at the plate, hitting the ball. So we'll see how it goes. We're off to a good start in the Rich Wallace era.
Yep, super excited, and guys, pitching, as we all know, is going to be a huge key to this season. I'm just excited that we're playing through contact, and not only that, but we also have some power hitters as well. So we're making contact with the ball and getting on base. And, we're using singles or, depending on where our hitting, what I noticed is our hitting is good enough that depending on where we're shifted or where the defense is shifted, we can hit it to the opposite side for a single or a double to make it tough on opposing defenses. Now, obviously, a lot of you haven't seen any of these games just simply because we aren't showing any of these games, which is a whole nother topic for another day. I think maybe we
can't wait for that to change. My goodness.
Oh yeah. Well, the Cows, you'll see 2 out of 3, and then all the conference games you'll see as well. So we actually have more games this year than we had in previous years.
Yeah.
And the word out of UCF is we're actually showing more games. We're just playing so many more games that you're not seeing them. So,
another conversation for another
time. Okay. So we've gotten pretty much through the entire show. Josh. Sorry, my business partner's name is Joe, so I'm used to saying Joe.
Hey,
Josh, I think it's time for your sometimes funny fact of the week.
Got it. So this one is very funny, huh? This weekend.
You're really selling it.
It's a meh funny.
Now, honestly, I think this is kind of cool because I don't really think anyone knows this unless you've actually looked it up. So we're playing in men's basketball, a home game versus the Iowa State Cyclones this weekend.
Right.
Gentlemen, why are they called the Cyclones? And why do they have a bird mascot?
Well, I'm going to assume that the red bird got cut up in a twister and that, no, just kidding. Well, I will say Iowa has a lot of tornadoes, so I'm not sure if that's the reason why. But having lived in the quad near the Quad Cities for a while, and knowing Davenport and a few of those areas, I could tell you that there are a lot of tornadoes there. I'm going to assume the redbird has something to do with their state bird, which is the cardinal, maybe, because it kind of looks like a cardinal, but it's not. So
Ben,
that's my best guess.
Okay, what do you got, Ben?
I mean, Cyclones. I've had the same guess as Roger as far as just being in an area of the country that has a lot of tornadoes, but. Yeah, I've got no clue. I didn't even think. I don't even think that is the cardinal even actually their state bird. I felt like that. I thought that was Missouri or Tennessee or something. But.
So yeah, because here's the thing, right? A cyclone is the name of a hurricane in the southern hemisphere, and Pacific. So like that doesn't make any sense that it would be hurricane.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, all right. Okay. Random fact Roger is going to sign out here and listen to Josh.
Got it. So, first and foremost, the Eastern goldfinch. The Eastern goldfinch is Iowa's state bird. So, no on that.
Makes more sense. Yes.
Yeah. So, why are they called the Cyclones? Okay. They're called the Cyclones because in 1895, Iowa, it was Iowa Agricultural College at the time, had an unusual number of cyclones, and that was what they called tornadoes in 1895. They went to play football at Northwestern and beat them somewhere, differing links with differing things, 45, 36 to nothing. And whatever that was, the Chicago Tribune had a headline that read, "Struck by a cyclone. It comes from Iowa and devastates Evanston town." And that was the article began. Northwestern might as well have tried to play football with the Iowa Cyclone, with the Iowa team it met yesterday, and that nickname stuck. So that is an 1895 reference. To hurricanes and tornadoes and cyclones. That was that. Now the bird mascots.
You should have totally said that in like 1900 speak. Like,
no. I probably could. Northwestern might as well trying to play football with an Iowa Cyclone. I should have. You should have. Yeah, we'll fix it in post. So the bird mascot's kind of interesting. So Cy the Cardinal is the mascot of Iowa State. Because a cyclone is very difficult to depict in costume. I'm looking at you, Tulsa. Cardinal.
Hold on. That's a golden hurricane in the middle of the plane. So come on.
That looks like something else. In 1954, a cardinal was selected from the cardinal and gold from their school colors. A cardinal-like bird was introduced at a pep rally, and the cardinal stuck.
All right. So the cardinal stuck. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now we know a little bit more about Iowa State, the Cyclones that should be called the Tornadoes, or whatever. They could have called themselves the F5. Would have been better. But I don't think that scale was around at that point.
I don't think so.
I can attest that they have some gnarly tornadoes. That is right in Tornado Alley, and they have some gnarly tornadoes. And I've seen a lot of really weird looking and colored skies at my time near the Quad Cities. Okay. That just about wraps it up. We just have a quick update on UCF sports. We talked about UCF baseball earlier. They topped Miami 4-3, then swept Samford 3-0, which means 3 games to nothing because they obviously scored a lot more than that. Next up, we play FIU in Boca tomorrow, and Alan is going to be our representative at the game. So, let's game. So what?
It's going to be an interesting game because I don't know if you looked into FAU. They are doing pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Josh, he's been typing in the private chat here. He's like, "This is my thing," so I'm going to let you do it. Go ahead.
That is not what I said. I said I don't get to do it. And to that I will go back into it.
He wrote it in all caps, folks. All caps.
I did not write in all caps. I will screenshot it and I'll post it to X.
No, I'll just vouch for you right now, Josh. It was not in all caps.
So I will say this with FAU. So FAU went to Nashville and they played Vandy. And Vandy had to come back in the first game in the bottom of the ninth to beat them. They took the second game. And then, the number 6 ranked team does what a number 6 ranked team does. Those are their only 2 losses. No, it's a midweek game, but they're doing pretty good. Anyway, Alan is going to the game, and we're going to talk about softball. So softball, the women's teams did great when they were not playing ranked teams. That was the 2 wins they had. They went 2-4 during this weekend. They lost to Michigan State, Missouri, Oregon, Tennessee. I think all of them were ranked. They did beat Oregon State and San Diego, and they play Princeton next. And maybe Princeton has a softball offense too. The UCF women's hoops.
Hold on. Interesting fact about that. They actually started one of their games, which I believe was against Oregon State, or it was either Oregon or Oregon State, at 1:42 a.m. Eastern.
Jeez. Probably Oregon State because they won. That's softball, and I know we don't have Trey on the show today. Softball.
Yes, it was Oregon State.
It was softball's. I love where we're going. I think we're out California too. So there's just a lot of wonderful things going on, and I like that we're trying to be the best, play the best. Women's soccer does that. Women's softball does that. A lot of other teams are doing that. And I think
we're doing that for RPI.
Well, I know we're doing for RPI. But truthfully, it also builds the team. Win better, but win or lose, you know what you're getting into in conference play. So speaking of conference play, UCF women's hoops are not doing so good. They lost to Oklahoma State 67-54, and they lost to Texas, number 5 ranked Texas, 87-56. So our women's hoops, we need to win the tournament to get to the NCAA, and we'll see what happens there. But I think we know what will happen, unfortunately. But men's tennis, they beat UAB 5-2. They're now 8-1. They play some cows coming up next. Women's tennis beat North Florida 4-0, beat Bethune-Cookman 4-0, and play BYU next. So that is our UCF sports.
All right. So a couple things anecdotally.
Sure.
We have found out that Josh has super fans that are from other schools that are now listening to us because of that. So we're excited. We heard we're holding the swag hostage. So if we see some swag show up, we're going to talk about them on the show. But we're super excited to have fans of other teams and other conferences enjoying the content that we make, or just pointing and laughing at us, but like, how terrible of a podcast can you make? Also, I'm going to tease this a little bit. We have got some really, really exciting news coming up in April. We're working diligently about something that's going to expand our reach by a lot. And for you guys, it will help us also get perspectives from other teams that may be in the Big 12 or otherwise. And, we're really excited about that. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media because we will be posting some things. Yeah, Ben, it's not doing it. I think your hands are too close together.
I don't know what's going on. It must be. There we go.
There it is. All right. Josh, yours just doesn't do that.
No, so, I don't use a Mac.
So I'm very excited about that and to share that with you because it's going to help us expand our reach exponentially. And I'm excited for you guys to be part of that journey. And lastly, just a quick shout out to everyone who likes, subscribes, gives us reviews. We see you, we appreciate you. And you're what we do. You're the people that we do it for. So if you have any suggestions, please let us know. We're going to try to get some more interviews coming in. We really enjoyed our interview with Joey Connors or Jose Guapo. That Josh, I don't know if he knew that or if he was just playing dumb, but excited to get more former UCF athletes on the show. So that being said, we're coming up on 2 hours. We'll call it a night. Go Knights and
Charge on.
You
So
guys
here's
are so
what
excited when you say that.
I know. At our camp out, one of the guys is like, "You're too long in your recordings." So